Hello and welcome to another episode of Sideline Story, your destination for sports news, analysis and discussions. I'm Yang Guang. This week we switch our focus to the NBA playoffs. How will the highly anticipated matchups be contested? Who has the potential to determine the playoff picture? For this discussion, I'm joined here with my brilliant co-hosts Tian Yu and Brendan Yates. Alright, the NBA is officially into the playoff time, also the most exciting part of the season. I would say we would witness the most closely contested playoffs in the Western Conference this year. First, let's talk about this tie between the LA Lakers and Minnesota Timberwolves. It's definitely the most anticipated first-round series for me. Luka Doncic against Anthony Edwards, the faces of the league in the future. So, Brandon, how do you view this tie? Any bold predictions from your side?
Look, I think it's going to be tight. I think, for people that are not necessarily, aligned with a certain team or just like kind of casual viewers of the NBA, they would, I suppose back the Lakers on paper. I mean, just having that combination of LeBron and Luka on the same team and them just firing on all cylinders. I mean, just in recent games, some of the things that LeBron and Luka have been doing together and individuals has been absolutely phenomenal. I think LeBron has been great on both ends of the court, and just some of the assists he's been providing, he's been absolutely fantastic. Luka looks really locked in, on all areas of the court, particularly with his three-pointers, and he's looking like the best version of Luka that I think we've seen for some time, even I think at his prime at the Mavs. So to have those two weapons in your arsenal already is pretty fantastic. And I think that combination of talent and experience is pretty big. Although that being said, I mean, the Timberwolves definitely have the size advantage, which I think could be something tricky for the Lakers to deal with. I think that the underdog tag that they have going into the match against the Lakers is kind of strange, because I think over the last, let's say, 15 or so games, the Timberwolves have been outperforming the Lakers on both ends of the court. So they've been quietly going along their business where, all of the focus lately has been on LA, of course, with that blockbuster move for Luka. So it seems like the spotlight is on LA, which could, I think, benefit the Timberwolves. And I think that underdog tag is going to help them. And I say underdogs. Statistics-wise, they're not the underdogs. I think they would be the favorites going up against LA, but everybody's talking about LA and this, whole LeBron combination. Both teams will be confident for different reasons, but potentially, if there was to be some sort of surprise or upset, don't be surprised to see the Timberwolves put an end to this fairy tale story that's happening in LA at the moment.
Yeah. Right. Let's not forget the Timberwolves broke into the NBA Western Conference Finals last year. But definitely the LA Lakers are the fan favorites here. I remember after the penultimate regular season game against Houston, the LA Lakers guard, Austin Reeves, said, quote here, "I feel like we have a chance to win the NBA championship." So Tian Yu, looking at this Lakers squad, do you think Reeves was bragging, or do they really have a chance? First of all, they have to face the Timberwolves.
Yeah, I think Austin Reeves' optimism about the Lakers championship prospects isn't just hopeful chatter. I think it's grounded in the team's really impressive mid-season transformation, because the blockbuster trade that brought Luka Doncic to Los Angeles in exchange for Anthony Davis has kind of reshaped the team's dynamics, and the results kind of pointed out that the trade has elevated their performance. Because since Luka's arrival in February, the Lakers had surged to a 53-32 record, securing the third seed in the Western Conference, and his presence has been really instrumental, averaging over 28 points per game, including, a standout 45-point performance.
That's Luka.
Yeah, against his former team Mavericks. Sorry for Yang Guang. But his synergy with LeBron James, I think, who continues to defy age with his, playmaking prowess, has been a catalyst for the team's success. So talking about the matchup against the Timberwolves, I think it's going to be a compelling series, because both teams split their regular season meetings 2-2. That kind of indicates a very competitive balance. And the Timberwolves, led by Anthony Edwards, boast a very formidable defense. But however, the Lakers' recent momentum and the Doncic-LeBron partnership, just provides a very strong foundation for their optimism. So while the road to the championship is filled with challenges, I think the Lakers' current form and their star power kind of makes them legit contenders. So I would say Reeves' confidence reflects a team that's, peaking at the right time with a blend of, experience and talent that could really propel them deep into the playoffs.
So you think the LA Lakers can get past the Timberwolves?
I would say so.
Okay. Actually, as a Mavericks fan, I would like to see Luka go all the way to win the NBA championship and give Mavericks manager Nico Harrison a big slap in the face.
Fire Nico.
Yeah.
Fire Nico.
In the recent regular season, regular season between the LA Lakers and the Mavericks in Dallas, when Luka made the 3-pointer to Anthony Davis' face, all the fans in Dallas cheered, Luka.
Followed quickly by Fire Nico.
Yeah. That's not only embarrassing for Nico, but also Anthony Davis a little bit, I would say. But back to the Lakers, I'm afraid they can't do it this year.
Right.
They might do it someday in the future, but not this year. Look, the Lakers got a great lineup. They've got speed, fairly great size. And they have great ball movement after Luka joined. And most importantly, they have 3 clutch players in LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and Austin Reeves. But their weakness is also quite obvious against Minnesota, which is their defense under the rim. Yeah, JJ Redick has made LA Lakers very disciplined in defense, but they lack a reliable big man to secure Luka and LeBron's back after Anthony Davis left. So the Lakers can't really match the Timberwolves' height, which could be a game-deciding factor. I know some fans would say Luka Doncic also dominated the big man of Minnesota last year in the Western Conference Finals when he played with Dallas. But that Maverick squad also got some great rim protectors like Daniel Gafford and Lively III. So now with Lakers, you just can't depend on Jackson Hayes to compete with those big men day in, day out. And the Timberwolves created one of the best records in the league in recent months. They are greatly undervalued. So I would say the result might be Wolves in 6. Now let's take a look at the bitter rivals of the LA Lakers and LeBron James, the Golden State Warriors. After acquiring Jimmy Butler, I would say they were raised into another level. Jimmy really unlocked Steph Curry's offense. But still, they ended up in the 7th seed in the Western Conference, having had to beat the Memphis Grizzlies in the play-in game. And now they will face the Houston Rockets in the playoffs first round. So Tianyu, what do you make of this tie? How far can Golden State go in the playoffs?
Well, I think the Warriors pulling out that the win against Memphis in the play-in tournament was impressive, because the Grizzlies made it tough for the Golden State, but Curry and Butler both contributing 30+ points, and that offensive firepower just got them through. And now with the Rockets coming up in the playoffs, the matchup shifts. The Rockets have been a pleasant surprise this season, with a mix of youth and talent. Jalen Green has turned into a star, and Alperen Sengun has evolved into a legit starting center, averaging over 19 points and 10 rebounds. And I think the Rockets have also have some nice depth, with players like Jabari Smith Jr., and like a couple of other players. So I think this isn't an easy first round opponent, I would say. But compared to the Grizzlies, I think the Rockets are still learning how to win in the postseason. And the Warriors championship pre-degree kind of gives them the edge in this series. So I think the Rockets defense, especially on the perimeter, has been, suspect. in the recent games against top teams like the Lakers, they struggled to contain ball movement and they just gave up open looks from three. So I think this plays into the Golden State's hands as Curry and Butler thrive when they can space the floor and create open shots for others. So yeah, I think if the Golden State can get their shooters going early, I think they could easily take control of the series.
Brandon, is Golden State having better chances than the LA Lakers to go far in the playoffs?
I'm not so sure. I think that look, they're heating up at the right time. I mean, that performance against the Grizzlies, a very dramatic 121, 116 win, which I watched. I mean, that was pretty remarkable. And there were definitely moments where the Warriors, particularly in the last, third and fourth quarters, where they just looked like they were kind of capitulating a little bit and, giving away easy possessions and, making silly mistakes that you wouldn't expect from such an experienced roster. But that being said, when those clutch players were required, I mean, look, Jimmy Butler from start to finish in that match and since he's joined has been absolutely incredible on both ends of the court. Just what he offers from his energy, his efforts, his ability to drive, his shooting, he really is a fantastic player, and that combined with his experience and being known as playoff Jimmy, that combined with just Steph Curry's clutch three-pointers time and time again, even at the age of 37 in this match as well. There were just moments where he landed three-pointers when they were so desperately needed. But my concern with them compared to LA is that I don't think they have an out-and-out third star.
Yeah.
So Draymond Green, of course, comes in with plenty of experience and offers a different element to the team that someone like Steph Curry or Jimmy Butler would offer. Of course, he's a defensive monster and really gets into the face of his opposition and also, has pretty good vision and has the ability to get under the skin of his opposition and sometimes even his own teammates. Those three offer star quality, but to go all the way compared to the likes of LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, I'm not entirely sure. So LA might have slightly more than the Warriors do. I think it's close, but if I had to put money on which team has more firepower at this point, I think it might be LA just by a little bit.
Interestingly, our fellow podcast host, Draymond Green, listed Austin Reeves as the best third man in the league.
Yep.
But the Warriors lack such role within their squad. I mean, Buddy Hield or Draymond Green, sometimes you can expect them to score key points, but they just can't get job done independently.
Yeah.
Like what Austin Reeves did on the courts. We touched on probably the two most popular and loved teams for fans in the NBA right now. Their popularity sometimes gives fans a vision that they are the best teams in the league and makes us forget actually the Oklahoma City Thunder and Cleveland Cavaliers actually created the best records in the regular season. They might lack some star names, but they are still the betting favorites in the postseason. So Tianyu, the question here should be, can OKC and Cleveland repeat their regular season dominance in the playoffs?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. If we start with the OKC, I think they have been legit all year because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been playing at an MVP level, averaging over 30 points, while defending also at a high level. And, the supporting cast, Jalen Williams, Holmgren, Dort, they have been very mature beyond these years. But here's the thing, this is a quite young squad with not very much playoff experience. Playoff basketball slows down and physicality ramps up. Teams target your weaknesses. We haven't seen how, Chet handles a 7-game series grind or, how the team adjusts when their usual flow gets disrupted. But that said, they are a deep, very well coached and also very elite on both ends. So I think if they survive the first round and get some rhythm, I think they could make a real run. As for Cleveland, I think they've been very strong defensively all season, and they have more playoff experience than OKC, but they've got bigger question marks because Donovan Mitchell can carry them in spurts, but the Cavs' offense can get stagnant sometimes. And they have struggled against, powerhouses sometimes. The front court duo of Mobley and Allen gives them, both size and rim protection, but the spacing can get tight. And if Darius Garland isn't, clicking, so it would be hard for them to, score efficiently from the half court. So I think I would say OKC is more likely to, translate their regular season success into, a deep playoff run. And as for Cleveland, I think they are very good, but I'm a bit more skeptical towards their performance because they need everything to go right, and just Mitchell to be the guy every night. I would say Thunder are the more believable contender.
It seems like even though the two teams had the best records after the regular season, the public opinion is that no matter who they meet in the playoffs, they can't guarantee progression from every round. They are like those football teams that can do really well in domestic leagues, but can be easily eliminated from the Champions League knockout stages. Yeah. I mean, the Western Conference is congested with so many good teams, and in the East, Boston Celtics is a great mountain for Cleveland to climb. But, I mean, credits must be given to the two best teams after the regular season. They were the most consistent sides after 82 games, so you have to give them that. So I would say they have rather high hopes of meeting each other in the NBA Finals this season. So Brandon, what do you think? Can OKC and Cleveland deliver what they've got from the regular season?
I think they can. And I also think, not just us, but particularly in the US, I think basketball fans are quite fickle and quite forgetful. So even if a team is doing quite well in the regular season, I mean, even if you look at, for example, the All-Star game and that sort of thing, no matter how well a certain player is doing in a certain season, the stats and the numbers they put up, all the regular stars, even if they're having a bad season, still get picked. And it's kind of like that when you look at, how the season progresses. Teams like OKC and the Cavaliers that aren't jam-packed with stars. I mean, look, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Chet Holmgren, to a certain extent, I guess, are established NBA stars. But, Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, for example, at the Cavaliers, I wouldn't call them, NBA stars. Teams like that kind of get ignored when we get to these stages, even though they've been performing incredibly well throughout the season. So I think it's when we get to these stages, and I think particularly this season, what's going to be interesting, I think it's going to be consistency against experience. Some of these more experienced, star-laden teams like the Lakers and the Warriors that weren't necessarily firing on all cylinders in the regular season, when they get through that and get to these stages where it really does matter, that's kind of where we see these icons come into their own because they show up when it matters. LeBron, Luka, Steph Curry, when they get to these latter stages and as the season progresses, they get better and more impactful.
Yeah.
So we're going to see a battle of consistency, like with OKC and the Cavaliers, against superstars and experience. And I think that's going to be an interesting battle. I think I'm more like, the regular NBA fan where I don't care what a team's done throughout the regular season. When it gets to that kind of playoff or championship match sort of scenario, I tend to back the guys that have been there and done that, which is kind of sad because you do want to see, the regular season performance go on and get what they deserve.
Yeah.
But that's not always the case. So I think, the teams that have the star performers and at least a big three probably have the best chance of going all the way. So just in this particular conversation, if I had to back OKC or the Cavs against, for example, the Warriors and the Lakers, I wouldn't do it. I think I would give the Lakers and the Warriors a better chance of going further. But it's quite crazy to say when you look at how well OKC and the Cavs have done this season, because they truly, both teams have been remarkable.
Yeah, it's never easy to deny any team's chances. Now, let's have a look at the 2023 champions, the Denver Nuggets. They have big troubles these days after the management fired head coach Michael Malone. I would say it's the biggest managerial change in the league this season, surprising on the same level with Luka Doncic being traded to the LA Lakers. I mean, who would fire your championship winning coach right ahead of the playoffs. Yeah. Who would trade the best player in the league in his prime time to their opponents? It's a bizarre world, I don't get. So Tianyu, how will firing Malone impact the Denver Nuggets playoff campaign?
Yeah, I think I remember that, Yang Wang, you and I were talking about this decision that Nuggets have made. And this decision have reminded us of more bizarre decisions that we have seen over the past 2 seasons, like Bayern Munich announcing that they will not sign a new contract with Mueller. So yeah, we were wondering what happened to sports. The sports world is suddenly becoming very cold without human touch.
Everything is falling apart.
Yes. And Denver firing Michael Malone just days before the playoffs, that's also a big deal. There's clearly some internal stuff going on with the front office, and it's definitely a risky move. But we've also seen that the Nuggets have been responding quite well under interim coach David Edelman. They've been winning 3 straight games after Malone's departure and locking up the 4th seed in the West. But still, you don't mess a successful coach this late in the game unless there's a real rift. And now they've got a face of the Clippers, who have Harden and Leonard. Harden's playmaking and Leonard's two-way dominance have made them quite dangerous. But we also know that Jokic is the 3-time MVP, and he's pulling off yet another MVP level season. And if anyone can keep Denver's ship steady in the turbulent waters, it is Jokic.
Right. It seems like even though Shai Gilgeous-Alexander would probably win the MVP award this season, from my perspective, I still think Nikola Jokic is the best player in the league right now, averaging almost 30 points with triple-double throughout 82 games. It's
insane.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's a freak. Brandon, what do you think? Can Jokic lead the team advance from this series despite the incident of firing Michael Malone?
I think it's definitely possible, but it also just shows you how influential Jokic is because, like you mentioned, Yang Guang, it does seem like everything's going wrong at Denver, but despite that, they still managed to clinch the 4th seed.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't just lose their head coach. They also lost GM Calvin Booth, and apparently there were a lot of issues, locker room tension, and there were also concerns over the team's direction. But I mean, they still managed to do the job on the court despite all of the turmoil around them, and like you said, Jokic is putting up MVP level numbers. I agree with you, Yang Guang. I think he still is the best player in the NBA. And of course, he's being supported by the likes of Jamal Murray, who's also, playing absolutely brilliantly, and, a couple of other support players. That being said, I also think there's interesting things happening at the Clippers. I think Harden and Kawhi Leonard in particular are 2 players that have a lot to prove because they are 2 superstars that I think have kind of under-delivered recently for a variety of reasons. So, of course, we know Harden just seems to be incapable of finding a home or, getting along with his teammates or management. There's always some sort of issue with him, whereas Kawhi Leonard just never seems to be able to get through an entire season. I think they both want to prove that they can bring a championship to the Clippers. So, look, I think even though there is turmoil around Denver, the fact that they've got the best player in the league still gives them a massive chance. But I think they're going to have a difficult time against the Clippers, who look like a really formidable outfit. So I think it's, again, just going to be a fascinating matchup. And it'll be interesting to see what sort of direction, Denver takes with this change from their coach and GM and, with seemingly a disagreement in the locker room with the direction of the franchise. Maybe they will bring a completely different way of playing against the Clippers that they might not be expecting. So even though there is turmoil off the court, that might bring some surprises on the court that could, lead to some problems for Denver. But at the same time, with all of the superstars that they have and also that factor of unpredictability that they will now bring, that could also be a problem for the Clippers because they now don't know what sort of Denver team and Denver tactics they're going to be facing. I think that's probably one of the hardest ones to call. I actually won't even put a prediction forward for that one because I think both teams are bringing serious firepower and both pose high-level threats, but for very different reasons.
Yeah, just look at their position, 4th seed and 5th seed. That makes sense. It's the hardest prediction to make. But with Jokic, maybe they don't need a coach. Yeah. I can be the coach of the Nuggets, and
they don't even need a team. They can just put Jokic out there by himself.
All right, let's see how these exciting playoffs will be contested and what classic games it will offer. With that, we end this episode of Sideline Story. Thank you so much for joining us. Subscribe to Sideline Story wherever you listen to podcasts. For more information, you can also check our website at radio.cgtn.com. Until next time, stay on the sidelines with us.